Potentially starting in July 25.
Everybody will be down. Hey, nice day today. Hey, good to see you, Glenn. Nice day today, huh?
BOE Meeting? I could say.
I want us to do a presentation.
So, let's have a pledge. Okay, we'll say the pledge.
Yes.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I pass this now to who is chairing this? John, it's all yours.
Call the meeting to order. The purpose of this meeting is the annual budget hearing. And to declare the public hearing for the purpose of the final overview of the 2015-2016 year school budget. And I turn it over to Mr. Mike McGuire and Kimberly for the overview.
Are we doing art? We're not doing art first.
No, the budget
We're
hearing.
doing art first. Before, well, Trump started. Art was.
Sorry, Ellen.
Sorry, Ellen.
And
You
this-
could see we thought you were first.
And we've presented this several times, so this is what the board has adopted to move forward with.
Yep. And the frame around it that is that after 2 years of reductions and right sizing and really watching every penny, we've got some additional aid, and we're really very happy to be investing it in some personnel and some other initiatives that help us meet our board goals.
Thoughtfully.
Yeah, with a lot of thought.
That's what I mean, thoughtfully.
Yeah, very intentionally. So, go.
Okay, so we'll start with the budget propositions that we will see on May 19th. And this first one, very straightforward, the 15-16 budget proposition, bless you, as last adopted by the board at our last meeting, is just over 26 million. And that represents a 4.5% increase over our current spending plan. In addition to that, we have the library proposition. This is always included in our propositions, however, we really don't have any say in this. And the library is looking to increase their tax levy by just over 5,000, from 105,000 to 110,000 to support the library efforts. The next proposition that you'll see on May 19th is for the purchase of school buses. We, as everyone is familiar with, we actually use the dollars that were previously placed in the vehicle and equipment reserve, and we are looking to expend up to $385,000 from that existing vehicle and equipment reserve for 3 full-size conventional school buses and 1 vehicle. And then finally, the Building Capital Reserve Fund. In the past, we had this, you may recall the last one that we had $3 million, and that was used as starter money for our last capital project. Any money that we can put into a building capital reserve really lessens the impact on the total, the impact to the local taxpayer. So any money that we have that comes from additional fund balance or unappropriated fund balance at the end of each school year, we can shift and move into this building capital reserve if it's approved by the taxpayers. And we've set this at 3.5 million. And should we get to that total, we can keep that fund in place for up to 10 years. So we start this with small increments, and each year we'll look at if there's additional fund balance to try to get to that 3.5 to lessen the impact locally. And finally, here's our expenditure budget history. You can see in 14-15 we were at 24.8, and in 15-16, thank goodness for the additional aid that came in, we were able to increase our budget by 1.1 million, and again, that represents a 4.5% increase.
And if I could mention that the part of the increase was the reduction of the gap elimination adjustment that they have been taking from us for years.
More money from the state.
Okay, and this is always an interest area to our local population, our property tax cap. It's about an 8-step formula, and we are working within the tax levy. Don't be confused by 2%, it's never really 2%. If you look at the bottom row, you'll see in 15-16, based on the state prescribed formula, we will be collecting 10.5 million from the local taxpayer. That represents a 2.2% increase. In actual dollars, though, that represents additional revenue of $226,000. Okay. And then the revenue, this is always a good place to start because you have to know how much money you have before you know how much money you can spend. So if we look at the very top line, this is our plan.
Yes, this one.
Bear with me. So real property taxes, you can see we're picking up an additional $226,000. That's that 2.2% increase in the local tax cap. And at the very bottom, you can see overall the differences between each line. In the end, we're picking up about $238,000 in additional local revenue. So minimal growth there. This next slide, you can see the yellow highlight. Everything above that line represents what we're getting in state aid. And as I've said a couple other times at these other meetings, is that even though the governor comes out with what we call the state runs, there are a couple of lines that are expenditure driven. So transportation aid, building aid, and BOCES aid are expenditure driven. And so although the governor puts numbers out that look like that's what our district will receive, we actually look at historical data, what we've spent over the last several years, and we make a projection for what we believe we will really anticipate based on our true expenditures. So the numbers that, if you were to compare the state aid runs to what the district believes we will get, are slightly reduced. Overall, though, you can see we're still picking up this blue line over here, 2.3 million additional in state aid, which is significant for us. What that has allowed us to do going into 15-16, and you may recall previous budget meetings and presentations where I spoke of our dependency on our reserves. So this puts us in a really great position where we can start backing out of the dependency on those reserves, at least for the next school year. And what that does is it preserves the lifetime of those preserves, not knowing what the state aid will come in at next year. So one of the big ones is interfund transfer for debt service. You can see in 14-15 we were at $686,000. Projected, what we hope to take out of that debt service reserve for our current fiscal is $250,000, and a projection for next fiscal is $50,000. And really what that does is when we go out for our next capital project, we now have more money in that debt service fund that we can apply to our future debt, which will lessen the impact on the local taxpayer. In addition to that, capital interest, last year because we went out for that new project, we actually had to borrow the interest to make that first payment, so this is a line that's now zero. So we won't have the capitalized interest coming in as revenue. It was a complete wash with the same expenditure that was in our current year expenditure budget. Another one that we reduced significantly, and this is one that we were highly dependent upon, is our ERS. You may recall that our ERS expenditure, we lived the last couple of fiscals where we almost took the entire amount of that expenditure out of our reserve, which made me nervous because as we moved into the future and those funds depleted, that would mean that the only way to back out of that would be to raise taxes or reduce your expenditures. And we all know that the money when we reduce expenditures in a school budget really comes down to personnel. Thanks to the state aid, we are able to reduce that expenditure to where it says $67,000. That represents $30,000 out of our unemployment reserve and $37,000 out of the ERS reserve. So significant reductions, again extending the longevity of those reserve funds. And appropriated fund balance. So this, for those of you that don't recall, Within our existing expenditure budget, there are lines that are intentionally overstated. And the reason we do that is that part of it is we need money to live throughout the summer. We don't get our state aid until the fall. And by moving this money forward and under expending our expenditures as stated in the general fund by the tune of at least $600,000, that allows us to have that money to get through the summer, and it also lessens the impact on the local taxpayer in the fall. So our grand total revenues for next fiscal are just over 26 million, and that represents an increase of 1.1 million over our current fiscal. You can see the very bottom line, I've separated the UPK grant. I've done that intentionally because typically we don't list our federal money here. It's completely separate from the general fund. But because we are adding the UPK program locally this year, I thought it was important to state that we are receiving that $65,000 in federal monies to offset that expense. Okay, so our proposal for 15-16, based on the revenue, is just over 26 million. And I think the next most important line is this. This includes a dependency of 717,000, that applied fund balance, which I just spoke to, the 600,000, the ERS reserve at 37,000, unemployment at 30, and an additional 50,000 from debt service. If you compare that to our current fiscal 14-15, we were at 1.7 million in dependency. We are now projected at 717,000. That is a far better position for our district to be in. Okay, this is a little bit difficult to see. Let's see, where should I focus your attention? So if I take you to this line for 15-16, you can see that the projected balance, June 30th, 2015, let's use the vehicle and equipment reserve, was at 775,000. We are looking to reduce that in 15-16 by 385,000, leaving a balance of 390,000. That may seem concerning, considering we're spending 385,000. However, many districts that cannot afford to pay cash for their buses, they do borrow. The aid comes back in at the same, it works out really well to borrow money for buses. So I'm not at all concerned about that reserve starting to run out. The retirement contribution, you can see, is still pretty healthy. We had projected maybe 250,000. We're saying maybe we can get out of that just 200,000. Next year, 37,000. Huge win for the district, extending the longevity of that reserve, which really, that helps for the years in the future where we really don't know where the aid will come in. If we had to increase the amount that we take out of that reserve, we're in a good, healthy position to be able to do that. And then finally, down below, you can see debt service. We started June 30, 2015 at 2.6 million. We're looking to only take out 50,000 for next fiscal. So we're still at 2.5 million, which is a really nice place to be. Debt service fund is different than the capital reserve fund. Debt service is used to pay for existing debt. The capital fund is used to pay for those new expenses in capital construction or reconstruction. Next, I'll present to you the three-part budget. And I won't read this to you. It's broken. This is required by the state. Administrative program and capital. Administrative includes Board of Education, superintendent, related services for the central administration of the school. Program is just that, all student-related program expenses, special education, summer school, adult education, anything really involved that's required to deliver a sound curriculum to our students. And capital component, leases, debt service, construction, operations and maintenance, those components fall under capital. Spending plan by component, of course you want your administrative expenditures to be lowest. They're projected at 15-16 to be 5.4% of the total 26 million. 72% for the program, which you can see represents the largest share, which is exactly how it should be. And our capital percentage grew slightly because we did just finish that capital project, so we will start making both principal and interest payments on that existing capital project that we just finished. Proposed spending plan. So you can see the top part from here up is all administration. And you can see, for those of you that recall, TRS, ERS, and due to the accounting error on our health insurance, allowed for us to decrease our expenses in fringe benefits, which is a great win for the district. So you can see fringe benefits alone for the administrative component dropped by 20,000, but all total, the differences for those category lines represents a decrease of 40,000. It's a perfect direction to go in. And for capital, you can see there is an increase of 719,000. And if you look closely, you can see debt services increased by 653,000. That's directly offset by the new state aid that we'll get from capital building aid. But again, we have to show that expense in capital expenditures or through debt service. Proposed spending plan for program. Obviously, this is the largest piece of it. It represents 18 million. And you can see it's an increase of 442,000 over last fiscal. Later on in the presentation, Michael will speak to some of the new initiatives that we intend to fund with the additional state aid and how that supports our programming pre-K through 12. From budget year to budget year, it's important to notice that we were at 24.8. Our proposal is at 26 million. That's an increase of 1.1 million. Even though our increases across all buildings was closer to 1.4 million, I did decrease our fund balance. What that means to the general public is that one of the most significant pieces last fiscal was that accounting piece with BOCEs on our health insurance. And so that expenditure was overstated at the time that the budget was built, and then we were able to finesse that and figure out our true expenditures, but the budget had already been adopted. So that overstatement allowed for us to move forward into the next fiscal, and even though there was a 7% increase in health insurance, we were able to keep that line relatively flat. So even though our expenses are only showing an increase of 1.1, total expenses was 1.4 by the time I reduced those lines. So also a win for the district. Okay. So areas of significant change, you can see in 14-15 TRS was at 1.2 million projection, and you can see that the decrease in percentage and also we have fewer positions funded is going to be 983,000 for next year. Medical insurance, again, due to that overstatement, as I previously stated this evening, including that 7% increase, we are really looking at from budget year to budget year. We were at 3,072,000, and for 15-16, we're looking at 3,015,000. ERS, 434,000 for 14-15. And again, the percentage for the employer contribution is a better percentage for the district next fiscal at 18.6%. So that too has dropped to 372,000. These are typically the areas that the previous 2 years I came to the board and to the public and said, these are 3 or 4 pillars, because I often include salary increases for the entire district. And so these are our 4 pillars. These are what drive the budget season every year. And so this year we are in a very fortunate position where these all decreased or remained flat, and the state aid came in better than it did in the last 2 years. So it's one of the best years we've had in a long time. I'll let Michael speak to our program investments that are projected for 15-16.
Yes, as we realized that we might be able to make some investments rather than continue to make reductions, we met with the leadership team, and they, our principals met with their teams in their schools, and on top of all of that is our board for a long time has had an interest in doing pre-K through our district resources. So we're definitely going to fund 2 classrooms, and if the enrollment warrants it, we'll figure out how to fund a 3rd classroom. We're going to hire 2 math teachers. We need to provide more support for our students in math. The middle school, we had a couple of retirements or people leaving the district, and we didn't replace them when we were trying to reduce expenditures, and so now we believe that we really need 1 teacher to help with our 5th, 6th grade. In our high school ELA program, we need about a half teacher. We don't just do things in whole teachers, sometimes it's just a half. Makes it work to address Common Core standards and some other program needs there. Student services support, this has been a critical need. 2 years ago, we very reluctantly reduced a social worker, and we are very glad that we can bring 1 social worker back. That will really help us out in our elementary school and our middle school. We set aside some funding for STEM. Been really looking at that this year, and we want to move forward with some pilot programs. We just have some things in maintenance and operations. We reduced, I'm thinking, 2 or 3 cleaners, and we're going to bring 1 back. We just need it to make it work. Elementary school support. Right now, we're going to increase the dean of students a half a day per week, which comes out to 0.1. And then if we have a 3rd pre-K classroom, we'll be funding a full-time dean of students. That's our intent, depending on how that all turns out. The rest of it all adds up. One of the main needs that was identified in several board meetings and through correspondence with the board is we need to do something to improve our substitute pool so that people who are thinking about being a substitute teacher will choose Trumansburg. And so we're going to work on that. We definitely need increased bandwidth with our technology that we have increasing needs. I think we're going to spend at least $55,000 of that on increased bandwidth. Could be up to
And is there
$75,000.
some sense from the state we're gonna keep getting investments in infrastructure like that? That big bond they
Haven't
passed?
heard a damn thing about it.
So didn't we pass a big old bond
Yes,
just
we did.
last year?
Well,
A big old bond, like
they-
$4 billion
they-
bond.
Kind of like
did,
the
but-
Highway Bridge Project
Yeah.
bond.
Well,
Okay.
they did, but they also put conditions on it that, first of all, there's quite a process to identify what we would spend the Smart Schools bond money on. And after you meet those requirements, which are okay, I mean, it's like having a technology plan, which we have, which we do, and involving our community, which we will. The challenge for the school districts is that you have to front fund the money, spend the money, and then apparently, what I hear is that apparently as they all, say 55 school districts come up with $200 million worth of expenditures, then they'll go out and they'll sell the bonds, and then they'll give us the money back. So we would have to have the money. You can go back up through the presentation, and Kimberly would probably laser in on some number that we would have to pick out of thin air to spend first, or we could borrow the money and then incur
So they've
interest
done,
costs.
that's a very interesting political move, isn't it, right?
Oh,
It
yeah.
looked
Oh,
like-
say you're gonna spend the money, but
Exactly
create
what
an
it was.
infrastructure that prevents everyone from spending it.
Yeah, that's
Interesting.
And that's what we've been hearing, and that is what is playing out. With our new teachers, we're gonna have some mentoring needs. Next year, football, we're gonna be back in the business of having a football team, merging with South Seneca. We'll incur some expenses there. Maintenance equipment, I think Joe Maglioka is pretty happy with some of these new pieces of equipment to maintain our new fields out there. We do a lot of contracting with BOCES to meet the needs of general education student needs, which is outside of special education. And then we're negotiating 2 contracts right now. So all that adds up to where we intend to invest this aid that we've got from the state.
Can I go back to the bandwidth for just a moment?
Sure can.
I realize that they put an awful lot of hurdles in front of us to try to get some of that new schools and technology money, but will this bandwidth increase that we're going to, will that qualify in any way for the way it's laid out now, that we get reimbursed for that?
I think if we were to select bandwidth as one of our expenditures under Smart Schools bond, we would get reimbursed, but we're gonna go ahead without that.
Oh, no, I understand that,
Either
but
way.
as long as there's hope on the other end that we can get something
There
like
At some
that.
point, maybe.
Yeah, our share of Smart Schools bond money is about $1.1 million. So
I
it's
pick it up in the
it's
street.
very attractive, but it's hard to spend.
We actually purchase our bandwidth through the Regional Information Center in Syracuse, so it is aidable. And we did just increase it the other day because we were noticing that we were having some times where people couldn't access information quickly. So we increased it for the tail end of this school year, and now the Regional Information Center is monitoring our use to get a full picture of where we're at and what the spikes are within the day to see if we should increase that again, so.
Excellent.
Okay.
So just a reminder, the budget vote is May 19th, Ulysses Historical Society from noon to 9. Chris?
Yes, noon tonight.
Any questions from the public?
I have a couple.
Please.
Kip, is it possible, you had a pie chart there for administrative, program and capital with those colors. Is it possible in your budget to build those colors into every item on the budget so we know what's going where?
We can, and that's
Individually?
actually interesting that you say that, because I have a multiple page budget spreadsheet, and I do have it color coded for my own purposes, so yes, I could easily do that in the future.
That'd be great.
Mhm.
What, and this is sort of an uninformed question. With all the money coming in and whatnot, why are we raising the tax levy 2.2%?
That has been a conversation that we've had multiple times. And I think that when we met with the administrative team and led by Michael as well, that we looked at the program initiatives that we felt needed to be refunded, that we were forced to cut the previous 2 years. And so administratively, we looked at it and said, we'd like to go out this year and stay within our tax cap, but refund some of those initiatives that we felt cut too deep, or where we really see our students are struggling and could use additional support. Going forward, our intent would be to continue to look at those same initiatives that are funded. We want to make sure that they're sustainable, but should state aid come in at a higher level next year, it's definitely a conversation that we need to bring to the public and to the board to reassess if we really need to go out at that continued tax cap level.
Thank you. $385,000 set aside for new buses, is that correct? Something like that?
That's correct.
How much is being added for new teachers and for classes? Just generally. I mean, I know what you said,
A couple slides there.
but how does that compare? How does that compare in terms of dollars?
About a third
So
of
the
what we're
the
spending on
total
teachers.
impact of adding
A third.
two new UPK classrooms,
Potentially.
less the grant, is 170,000. And then we're.
It's about a third, right? It's about 300 grand, isn't it? For the buses and 800 grand for the teaching thing.
Okay.
Yeah, about 800,000
Yeah.
that is going into program.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And one other question, dependency, what is that?
So, years ago, Trumansburg experienced a time where they had built up too much fund balance. So they proposed budgets each year, and then they underspent those budgets. And they had additional funding every year that was not allocated toward any one expense. And the comptroller came in, and they looked at that, and they said, Trumansburg, you have about $8 million too much that you took from the taxpayers, and you need to do something with it. And so at that time, predates you and I, and reserves were set up, and the reserves have state guidelines, and so those are what I refer to as dependencies, because the comptroller asked us to come up with a 10-year spend down plan. So $8 million, spend it down and get rid of it. And rather than going out and continuing to raise taxes, I think, again, predating myself, sometimes those tax increases were.
I'm just trying to understand, what is depending on what?
Well-
Why the word dependency?
So we build a general fund expense budget, right? and let's say, I'll just make up numbers, we need $100 to make that general fund work. We can't get all that money from the state or from the local taxpayer, but we still have that 8 million set over here in these piggy banks.
Right.
And so what we have done over the last several years was to say, we still have to spend $100 over here, but we're gonna have to take $30 out of the piggy banks every year to make this $100 work. And so that's what we call dependencies, because without pulling that $30 out, or, to get to the $100, we now have to make that up over here, which means hit the taxpayers with it or cut spending.
Well, that's a strange explanation, but I don't quite understand it, because you're
Okay.
saying if you didn't spend if you didn't spend the money you took from the taxpayers 10 years ago, you took too much. If we don't spend that, we have to take more now. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Because what we
but
did-
you don't have to try to make me understand.
No, I want to. I want to go one step further. Maybe that was a bad example. So the reality is that we could no longer go out and ask the taxpayers for that same amount of money anymore. We had to reduce that. And in order to reduce it, we still had the same expenses in many cases. We still had the same number of teachers and support staff. So how could we still spend the same amount of money but not go to our taxpayers anymore? Because we had already gone to them too much. So we had to take what we had saved from the taxpayers and offset those expenses. And we're able to do that for about 10 years. But now and especially the last 2 years, we hit it quite hard. So one of the best examples is the employer contribution for the retirement system. That expenditure was just under $400,000 each year. Rather than keeping that expense just in the expenditure budget, we said, okay, we're gonna show $400,000 right here, but we're not getting it from the state or the taxpayer. We're gonna take it completely out of the piggy bank. And so we took the money from here. Well, you can only do that so many years, because eventually this will run out. So we've created a dependency and said every single year we have to take $400,000 out of that piggy bank in order to make this budget work. And so what I have done since I've come here is to say, okay, we need that $400,000, but we better start weaning ourselves from it, because we can't just get to the edge of the cliff and say, wow, 2019, I still need $400,000, and there's only $1 left here.
Is there $1 left there?
No, there's far more than that.
How much is left?
It's on one of these slides.
It's 1.2, 1.8,
Go back to the slide.
1.8 million?
yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. thank
These
you.
are ways that,
Yeah.
these reserve accounts, I'm sure you understand, right? I meant to sort of smooth out the rough spots.
Yeah.
So that we don't have, apparently there was a period when someone was gonna go out for a 30% tax increase around here. right?
10 years ago, this
So
time, 11 years
think
ago.
that this reserve thing emanated from quite a bit of consternation around that time.
I bet.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And if I could add to that, it's
Yeah.
like the school buses. The
Yeah.
school buses will have no direct tax implications. It'll come out of that so-called reserve. And when the comptroller came and they asked us to put it away for rainy day fund, so to speak, when you put it into a capital reserve, we did the entire sports complex out here using upfront money from that and the school buses. And when it's in a reserve, unemployment reserve, you can't take it out of there and use it to buy school buses.
I realize,
You know, it's
I
all-
understand.
It's all target money, so to speak.
Gotcha.
Which works really well while the money continues to be there. But eventually you have to start backing out of that and
Right.
either decrease your expenses over here or come up with a different plan. And so, 2 years ago when we were talking about taking $400,000 a year out of the ERS reserve, I was concerned that we were only 4 or 5 years out from running out of that money. And what that then would mean is, when we went into that next budget season, if the state didn't come in with an additional $400,000 to cover just that one expense, then we had to cut expenses here at our district by $400,000 or go way over the cap.
I need to take an accounting course with you.
It wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
Any further questions pertaining to the budget?
You had cut some initiatives too deeply in the past, and that you're using this opportunity and using some of the reserve to bolster those initiatives again, can you give some examples? I think you did in the presentation.
Social
Well,
worker.
the social
But the
worker is
social
probably the best example.
Okay.
And we did cut or reduce English teacher, ELA teachers in our high school. And in math we just need to do a better job in math, so we need some additional support
And the
there.
cleaner as well, and,
And the- yeah,
the
yeah.
students for the elementary, you said?
Well, the
The
dean of
5-6
students.
position.
Well, yeah, that's a better example, is the 5-6 position in the middle school.
Okay. What is the 5-6 position?
Um,
Josh,
We've got a 5-6 principal right here.
Essentially, we have 4 teachers at each grade level, going up K through 8. What happened is in grades 5 and grade 6, over the last couple of years, there were retirements that did not get filled. And so we're down to 3 core teachers in grades 5 and 3 core teachers in grade 6. And 7, 8, we have 4, and then 4 and down, we have 4. So we have 3 people taking on the load of 4 normally, and they're strapped. And so we've had to offset some English classes using other staff in the building and taking away from what their designation would be. We had a reading specialist teaching a section of ELA where they could have been working in additional support. So by bringing that position in for the 5-6, we can let the reading specialist focus on being a reading specialist. We can take the special ed teacher and allow them to focus on their strengths and kind of fill back out to almost 4 people at each of those grade levels.
How many people are you bringing to 5 and 6? 2 additional?
So it would be one person split between 5, 6, so we do it 3.5 at each.
Okay.
Instead of the 4.
All right, thank you.
We're all set?
We're there. Thank you, Josh.
Okay, moving on. We have 2 vacancies on the Board of Education for the upcoming year. Douglas Land, who's been a fixture here for as long as I can remember, is a candidate. And I'd like to introduce her and see if she'd like to add anything to this.
Yeah, I guess like to sort of touch base on what I'm looking forward to, hopefully in the next few years. I'll be running for my 10th term on the board, which is amazing to me. But I must admit, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to say tonight, it dawned on me that I'm about as excited, or perhaps more excited, about being on the board for the next 3 years as I was when I first joined the board when my kids were in school. We are doing incredible things in the schools right now. We have a wonderful, wonderful administrative team and are working so collaboratively with them, and I can't say how much I have enjoyed the past 3 years as well. I'm moving the school into sort of a STEM curriculum is going to be really incredibly exciting. We'll be offering our kids opportunities, quite frankly, I never dreamed we would be able to offer them. And we will be incorporating the arts as we move ahead. The addition of the 2 pre-K programs is something we, again, have been, we've had pre-K programs in the building, but not run by this particular administration. And again, that's something we have been struggling with for about 20 years. I think it was 20 years ago that we made our first approach toward that, and just haven't been able to make much headway since this is the year, or next year is the year. I did retire this year as the area director of the New York State School Boards Association. I had been in that position for 9 years, but remain on the Tompkins-Seneca-Tioga-BOCES board, the Tompkins-Seneca-Tioga School Boards Association, the Central New York School Boards Association, and the Rural School Boards Association, as well as this board. We are offering our kids a true 21st century curriculum. I can't tell you how excited I am about serving with this group of people.
We'd be happy to keep you, Douglas.
Yeah.
Oops, I think I better not say that. I think I'd be happy to do that. That doesn't sound good.
And so if I could touch on the 2 vacancies, Douglas having one, and Douglas was the only person that filed a petition for reelection or even the first time around. So that will leave one empty seat at this point. In school law, Chapter 2, Subchapter 17, I believe, actually allows for a write-in candidate, and he or she who garners the most votes would necessarily, I guess, be our next board member. So, unfortunately, this is a complex job that we do, but it is also time-consuming, and time seems to be what people are lacking the most of, especially family-driven people. But if I may, I intended to serve one, maybe 2 terms, and I'm fourth, I guess. This is most rewarding, and I would encourage anyone who has children or is committed to community service to give it thought. And once again, that write-in would be on the 19th of May.
Forgive my ignorance, is someone stepping down?
Excuse me?
Yes. Oh, that, good question.
All right, thanks.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn the budget hearing? All in favor?
All right,
It's all yours, Frank.
okay, so do we have any agenda changes? Okay. Hey, here we are, Art Madness Month.
All right. Well, thanks again for having us. We love to come here and present, mostly because you're just such a captive audience.
Yeah.
I use the U shape. So I'm Ellen Pennick, this is Amanda Colunio, and Sarah Ecker, and Clarissa Plank, who's currently in for Sarah Ecker, could not attend tonight, but we're here just to talk to you a little bit about what we did in March, and not really focus on all the months leading up to March where we did all of our planning. But this year we got TCSD behind us again, the foundation. So do you want to do the tap through? Yeah, okay. It's over by Mr. McGuire. Do that.
You don't have a remote? I got a remote.
It's too bad these kids, oh my gosh, I totally tried a remote earlier.
You can't use your
And
remote?
I did my presentation in front of my family before I came here.
Oh, what lucky.
Tough crowd, tough crowd. One was completely distracted. As you can see, there's nobody having a good time in any of these pictures. You'll notice that trend throughout them. Just kidding. For those of you who can't see, here.
Yeah, they're back there, they're listening,
They're all
they're
there.
looking there.
Okay.
That's good.
Yes, please don't put me in charge of the remote. Okay, hit it, Sarah. So, just to recap, the Youth Art Month was started in 1961 by the Art and Craft Materials Institute in cooperation with the NAEA. And basically, it's held annually to emphasize the value of art in education and to encourage support for quality art and programs. Go ahead. Okay. Basically, a lot of people do the Youth Arts Month. It's done statewide, but our school does it the best, basically. So we got grant money from the TCSD Foundation. They were also the muscle behind our show. They helped us put up a bunch of stuff. And they got food from Good to Go for us. That was even better. And they totally rock. So we love the TCSD Foundation. So our goal was to involve grades K through 12. This year we focused on puppets, which was really fun. I don't know who, I think Sarah came up with that. Somebody came up with that, like, let's try puppets. Sure, why not, right? So we wanted kids to work firsthand with the puppets, and we wanted to show off their work to the community. So we did that a variety of ways. Before we get to the puppets, we did do a community event, Art Builds Bridges. That was actually the statewide theme, so we decided to use that for our community event theme. Rather than make puppets for the community, we thought we'd do a mural with the community. We gave students that theme, and they came up with a bunch of sketches, and then we gave those sketches to Sarah, because she's not doing anything, right?
Yeah.
She squeezed the essence out of those and made a mural. And the family and community members came to paint that. So here they are. It was about 5 feet by 10 feet. So you can just kind of scroll through these. We had about between 50 and 60 people come to that event throughout the time we had it. And there's the final result. Yeah, it was really fun. So then at the high school, we did a large Raider puppet. So the kids basically created some ideas of what they wanted to create. We watched a show by Wayne White, who's an artist who's known for his work with Pee-wee's Playhouse. He kind of has a loose mouth, so I didn't show his movie. There's a whole movie he has. We just went with the TED Talk. We worked with cardboard, fabric, found objects, hot glue, and it took about 2 weeks and about 5 people to operate it. So you can go through those slides.
So is it Lion King, Broadway sort of stuff with, cool.
It was so cool to see it walking up the street.
That is so cool. So this was part of the school day, Al? or-
Yeah,
or-
yeah, we did it during my advanced classes.
Nice. Oh, there you are putting a hat on, how cool.
It weighs a lot.
It weighs quite a bit.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that design is so
I just thought this was a funny picture. We were
Yeah,
using
everybody's
garbage
dressed
bags.
up.
And here it is, walking around. Actually walked around the school, waved to a bunch of people, so it was a lot of fun.
It exists still, right? We can bring it out at events?
Oh,
If you
I
want to
don't
get off its perch,
If you want, what?
if you want to get it off its perch, it's nicely set up, and there's no way that either one of us can get it back down. But it still exists.
it exists in spirit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So cool.
That is
It's big,
That'd be great at sporting events.
right?
A lot of fun.
Put it before.
Then we, in the middle school, we did shadow puppets. They were the Rama Sita, it's Rama Yama, shadow puppets. It's a really fascinating story about Rama and Sita and their love for each other, and then Sita gets stolen by a demon named Ravayana. I mean, it's intense. It's an epic story that most people in Southeast Asia know. So we brought in some authentic examples, so go ahead and scroll through those. This is Kaja McGowan, and that's Rama and Sita. And these are the kids, and they got to make their own puppets. So a lot of fun. This is made out of rawhide, and it's actually pierced a lot over and over again. And the kids got to make their own Rama and Sita puppets using metallic markers, and working with Cornell was really great. And then we made hand puppets in the elementary school. And the K through 2 did it with Sarah and Clarissa, and basically they had round circles and a lot of found objects, and they glued them all together. Just a lot of fun, just little simple hand puppets. Kids got to operate them. The kids' energy is so great for the elementary school. And then we did another one with Kate Cinco. I love this picture. She's like, I am having the best time. Kate Cinco came in for grades 3 and 4, and basically they created a drawing of what they wanted to do. Then they created an armature out of cardboard. We use a lot of cardboard, a ton of cardboard. We love it. And then they painted them and made these outfits. So there she is she had a little Monet puppet. And the kids got to use paper mache, which was really messy and super fun. And then they got to put little outfits on their pieces, and we actually had the help of the Big Friend, Little Friend. Came over and helped the kids put those together, so that was great. And then we had our art show and reception, which was a ton of fun. Everything that we created, 150 people at least. I'm not a carnival expert, but I think I'm pretty good at estimating sizes. These are some of the puppets that we made, and it just transforms the whole space there in the cafeteria. Families came and just saw, oh, look at that family. That looks like a nice young family. Future art department member. And then we had our auction, which was totally fun. This year we had community members, artists, teachers, students all donate artwork, 80+ pieces to auction off. We had bidding paddles that the elementary school made to try to get some more money. And Peggy Haynes was the auctioneer. And let me tell you something. You do not want to get in a bidding war with Shaw McGuire. She is insane. I got in a bidding war a couple times, and finally I looked at her, I'm like, come on. She's intense. And what's great, though, is that she's actually collecting pieces because she's putting them in the district office, which is awesome. So I don't have to go down and steal them. I just really want to say thanks again for letting us come and toot our own horn, because this is a really big deal for us to do. We plan all year for it, and we just love that we have this much community support and your support, so it's something that we want to continue to do. And here's the art department at the show. And then I just wanted to formally introduce you to two of our newest art department members, which, that's William and that's Morley, so, and then this is on the way, so. William is mine and Morley is Sarah's.
For 2 years, 3 years.
The round puck had on his head. We used to call him Voight. He looked like a basketball, he played the basketball.
Yeah, so needless to say, our families put up with a lot from us during March especially.
So I know we'd like you to come, because I think we continue to see the success when the community engages like the foundation does. That's the big thing that makes a big difference for us here, I think, that the community gets invested in this, and that's, I think, why we want to celebrate it, like we celebrate robotics. And it's not that we don't want to celebrate the other things, right?
Right.
But I think when we do come across these things, to be honest, the foundation, if they continue to get more requests, my sense is that there'd be continue to be resources, and I think that as activists as we want to be, that's the one comment I want to make. But the other is a question: what made the involvement with the Southeast Asia thing at Cornell for you to comment so good? Is there a structure they have? Is it that the person you're working with is great, or is there really a vehicle to find the people to work with? Because I know science is always trying to navigate that place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Big Al and the boys and the folks in science and the girls in science are trying to navigate that place. What made Southeast Asia easy to work with?
That is a great program to work with. They have a lot of authentic examples, and the people are just very knowledgeable. Plus, the woman is a parent, right? Or
No, she's a community member, but she's been there, so she had a lot of personal stuff that she was able to bring. And I think she was married to someone from Southeast Asia. So
Yeah.
her personal experience took it to the whole next level for the kids, because she had that firsthand. And
Yeah.
one of the people that was in the video, she actually studied with
Yeah.
over there. So
Yeah.
she was just a gem to find for the
Yeah,
kids.
and so we're looking at authentic shadow puppets, and that she let the kids actually touch them and play with them and manipulate them, which was, you know, just don't get that every day, right?
It was cool. I mean, we mimicked it on the smart board,
Yeah.
which is very technologically advanced compared to what they use. So I was just like, here, this is what they're like. Oh, because I mean, you can't see the
The
cool
shadow,
effect, all the
right.
piercings and stuff, until you get the shadow effect of it. So it was kind of cool.
So something else I wanted to say, I totally forgot. I looked last year at my presentation, and it said we raised $600 at our art auction. And this year we raised over $2,200. So that was pretty awesome. So I'm sure it's because you wrote a check for like $1,000. I'm not sure. Showing in their bags and that.
What was the original grant from the foundation?
$1,000. And we spent that on presenters and materials. And so when we raised all that money, we thought, wow, that was really good. Like, we paid them back completely and some, which was great.
Awesome.
It's like pay it forward, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you rock, Ellen. I love it. She does it every year. She puts that same slide on. You rock. Okay, do we have correspondence? So then we go to board forum, and I think we asked for just a couple of comments about various committees, and why don't we start with a comment about audit, Kimberly?
Okay, so just a refresher, many of you are aware that the district undergoes several audits each school year. Late winter this year, we actually had a visitor from the state comptroller's office, and they were looking at our school lunch program. They have since completed that audit, however, they have not yet sent us the formalized report because they are looking at similar sized districts and just making comparisons. So I get a call periodically. The good news is they looked at our school lunch program, they said, you know, all of our employees are doing a great job. And the reality, as we all know, is that the reason why we get attention for that program is because our expenditures far exceed our revenue. And part of that is food prices, but mostly it comes down to personnel and benefits, which we all know. So they're continuing to look at other programs, and within the next couple of months, they'll be sending us a report just with their best practices and anything that we could possibly change for our programs. In addition to that, we are setting up some meetings with our external auditors, and just like every summer, they will be back in July and August, and they spend a good share of the summer with us, looking at everything that we do. And then there will be a finalized auditor's report in the fall that we submit to the state, so.
So we get audited on a lot of different levels.
Yes, and actually last fiscal, we were audited by the state comptroller on our tax cap calculation. And they loved us, and they said that they would love to come back and do it again this year.
Excellent.
So we
That
welcome
much,
that,
huh?
and it's always good feedback. In the past, we had internal auditors. However, given the size of our enrollment and declining enrollment, the state has recognized that that's sometimes a financial hardship for school districts. So we no longer have to have that internal audit completed. And to be perfectly honest, we just don't have the personnel. When they're here, it's just nonstop providing documents and running for them for as long as they're with us. The good news, out of those reports, there's always great recommendations, and we still have enough material from the past audit to continue to work on some of our processes that we use, and cross-training is one of the big ones that I've really focused on in the district office. Many of you know our administrative assistant, Nahala, is being cross-trained with our treasurer, and just this week she ran most of payroll for us on the treasurer's end. So that's huge. It's really nice because in the past when our treasurer was out, we didn't have another person to necessarily step in. Douglas and I would do it. We always had to bust out the manual and do our very best, but to have somebody that is trained and very comfortable to just slide in, it's seamless, and no one even knew she did it this week. So it's a great thing for us.
Are there any cafeterias in New York State that are profitable? I can't imagine.
I believe there are some.
Yes,
There are some.
Wow.
But I would say the
You were far
majority
between.
are not. I mean, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal about this, about that, how this is a chronic problem since some of the new and healthy food initiatives have been put in. The programs haven't been able to adapt enough yet. They're just, okay, now we used to buy this, now we're buying this, and the kids won't eat this. What do we do? That's what it looks like from the outside. Doesn't look like there was a lot of thought. It's like, okay, you can't have this, you gotta eat this, now eat it. That's what it looked like. When I was reading about it, essentially what they were saying.
It is.
Yeah, and so I think that it didn't look like they were thinking it through, and I'm looking forward to, I think, at least in our district, we've had a lot of creative thinking, particularly with the foundation on food and curriculum and a progressive way to look at, our stuff. So food service takes us into another area.
And Jeannie may be able to speak to the foods program, which is supported by the foundation, has just begun in the elementary
And
school.
this week, third and fourth graders will have either 3 or 4 sessions with Antonia and Brud Holland, who's the chef. And they will be creating foods to serve once a week. I believe it's on Mondays in the cafeteria, so all the students, even if they can't be part of the program, will get to eat the foods. Yeah. And the garden is happening also.
Okay. So that looked like it got us audit and food service at the same time. Unless there was other things you wanted to add about food service, since we're in the mood here.
Yeah, just 2 things. It's moving along in terms of the transporting the breakfast. She did mention that the middle school numbers for breakfast are down a little bit, so she's kind of trying to figure out if there's a possibility to do a grab and go because there's such a limited amount of time. But other than that, things seem to be moving along. Not incredibly rapidly, but there is movement.
Okay.
And the single line in the elementary cafeteria?
Yeah.
Do we want to mention that? I thought that, it sounded fairly successful.
What did we talk about?
Or not.
Two lines of students going to
We've
one.
been trying a couple
We're
of
working on
different
some
things
things.
because they have fewer
Trying
people
out
in the
some
kitchen
ideas.
this year than previously. So they were trying a couple of things and then we've been getting feedback and then kind of tweaking it a little more. And I think we really landed on something that's working. So we're doing one line. It looks a little different than kind of we all thought it might at the beginning, but the kids are getting through. The goal is that the kids are able to get through and have, plenty of time to eat, which is
Correct.
where we've landed. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
It's very
So it's a good collaborative effort.
Great, 2 lines to 1 line. This is great. Okay, facilities committee, what do we have?
We met last Thursday to look at the preliminary findings for the building condition survey, and went through with John and Jeannie to prioritize some of those long lists of every aspect of the building. So classrooms, mechanicals, electric, every function. I think we made preliminary progress in terms, Joe added his insight into why he had prioritized things, then each of the principals had an opportunity to add input in, and then I think we're going to be moving towards finalizing those and present them back to the board.
It's a comprehensive thing, right, Gary?
Oh, God, yes.
It's every little faucet.
It was 3 hours, and we, I think, spent the first 2 hours on the high school, and then suddenly became very apparent that if we were spending that amount of detail, which in some cases was necessary, that this was going to get to be a very exhaustive process. And so we made it through the majority of it, at least as a quick overview. We'll continue to follow through on that.
That's a lot, that's good hard work, though. I mean, that building condition survey sets the course.
It will, in part, in addition to the programs that we're looking at, will set the course for whatever future capital projects we undertake, so.
So athletics, so that's you too?
We have not met, we're scheduled to meet this Thursday, and I believe that meeting will be postponed until the following week or so. So, at this point, I don't have anything further to add.
Okay. And so we have good of the order, which we put there because sometimes it's good to, wait a minute, do we miss Douglas's report? We got it in writing today.
It was sent to you.
Yeah, they got it. Actually, it was really good. That's really nice to hear that stuff.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, really
we're
good to
pretty
hear that
excited.
stuff. So good of the order is here simply for board members that, sometimes I feel like we don't talk about certain aspects of board service, and certainly John raised it in the meeting that we have that vacancy, and obviously we're gonna have a new board member, so as a board, we wanna be receptive, right, to that new member, and we talked about various maybe mentoring strategies or gathering strategies where it's just us under some legal form where we can meet and make it a sort of just a goal building or meeting that allows for that sort of stuff, that no decisions are made.
No, just an opportunity to be able to sit down with hopefully a new board member, and integrate them in with us, because that's a difficult thing when you're joining a group of people that have worked together for about 5 years.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to get them up to speed and reveal the true us.
Yes, that's right.
Because it is very intimidating.
That's right, it is. So any other things for good of the order?
Oh, man,
I'm just tagging on to that. It just occurred to me, we've never really done had a session at a board meeting where we discussed what board members do. And many schools actually do have a potential new board members forum at a meeting shortly before the vote is,
Interesting idea.
the petitions. And that probably would be, it might be a useful thing for us to do.
I mean, I think sometimes those communities actually have people who want to be on the board.
They do.
So that they can come to the board forum and then listen to it, right? So and maybe we do,
Toss it
there
out.
certainly is some merit to, is there a need to encourage? I certainly reached out to a number of community members
Right.
that I thought might be worthwhile, that might be, I don't know, what do you say, play nice? Part of it is what we do, and be thoughtful about what we do, and, right? And it takes time. It takes time and energy. Sometimes not always, sometimes the energy outside is more, right? Because you get emotionally invested in some of these things. We all care deeply about this work, and it's hard. Especially when we're laying off, our community members.
I'd like to add that last week I had the opportunity to have a meeting with Assemblyman Palmisano and State Senator Tom Reed. And they would both like me to send them our schedule for board meetings and actually attend, tell you what's going on in Albany as far as the APPR, the governor's line of thinking, et cetera.
Great.
And they've actually offered to tag along with me on Fridays to see what goes on in the elementary school.
You can get them some chefs hat.
Make sure you wear a good shirt that day, because you can be sure if they're there, the camera's not far behind.
Yeah. I thought that was very generous.
That's good. I think we want to have good relationships with those people. There's no question about the potential value for advocacy with those people. And I think you do very well. And to me, I'm like, you go, boy. I think that's part of what we have to be doing as a board. And I don't know if all of us have to be doing it, but.
No, but if I take the views of the school and remind them, now there's Schuyler County, that Schumansburg is, schools is 1/3 of Schuyler County students.
Right, so, and then
Very often, we're not-
Tom O'Mara is also us, right?
He's us. So,
And same with the Seneca County, Mazzolio, he kind of forgets that we have Seneca County students.
Did they do a legislative breakfast this spring?
I believe they did.
Did they do a legislative breakfast? I didn't remember seeing, I didn't remember seeing an announcement for it. You know what I mean, where we used to go over for breakfast?
I believe I did, but I think it was the same time I was out of town.
Okay, other good of the order items?
Just thought our meeting this morning was tremendously fruitful
Yes.
and beneficial.
Big time goal discussion this morning, that's great. Okay, Administrator, Michael, any other comments?
The only thing I'd like to mention is we have a new district website, and I think we're going to be communicating with our public in a much more effective, real-time way than we have in the past. So I encourage everybody to go to tbergschools.org. Easy to remember and good to look at.
Yeah.
Can you add to that any particular, when it was presented, the only thing that I failed to respond to was that there was a button there for people to watch us live or.
There is.
There is.
There is, yeah, under board, just as in our old website, there's, the one part that we haven't worked out yet is when people are looking, we haven't figured out a way to put a date on it yet. So we're working on a few technical pieces, but we are moving things over. Pretty soon we'll close down the old website, but it's still live for a while, but right at the top says move to the new one. So.
The board stuff is more current on the old website. I haven't been trained on how to update the website yet. So all the board stuff and the job postings is all still
They're still
on the old
there.
site.
Would that include any of the, I mentioned it to Michael, that one of the things that I was missing when I went through it was the fact that where's the art pages? And the music pages, they were not there. There was
We're still
athletics
checking on
there.
some
And
things.
where's our picture? We used to fuss about taking a picture of us.
Yeah.
You would never smile.
I always smiled, because I was so happy to be.
You can see that there are some technical difficulties.
Yes,
Okay, so we're wandering off the field now, so,
Go to the new website.
thank you, excellent.
John, you were looking for the archives for the board meetings, right? I think there's just one.
No, this.
Oh,
No.
This one.
Okay.
It's on the new site.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, Michael? No. Okay, good, we're there, let me go back to, I'm sorry, I gotta get back to the packet, I went to the website. So we have the consent agenda, any items wanting to come out? A through H, 6A through H, I need a motion,
So moved.
and a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're there. So we have two donations for new business. The first, from the foundation again, the TKED fund for the Discovery Trail field trips. Need a motion? And a second? Great, $4,500. Thanks very much to the foundation once again for this, what I think is a sort of a linchpin of their program, right?
Yes.
It's something that they've dedicated a lot of their energy towards since the inception, so we thank them very much for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There.
Frank, we have a big poster that they've put up of our children attending the field trips at the elementary school. So when you come in the main office, You go in the hall, it's permanently displayed now on the wall. And I believe there'll be one in each building, for the other buildings too, that the foundation provided us.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
So we have the next donation from the Discovery Trail, again, for $8,900. You need a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
There. Discussion, is this the Discovery Trail people or also the foundation?
One's the foundation, one's Discovery Trail.
Okay, so Discovery Trail is its own operation.
It is,
Okay.
but they're related, they're putting.
Well, we thank them very much. That's a
Together.
substantial donation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Open forum, community members wishing to speak? Good?
Could I add something that I've been meaning to add?
Go right ahead,
Couple
Douglas.
of
Last time I
meetings and
checked,
kept
you're
forgetting.
a community member.
That's true, I am.
We have another place for you to speak in forum, but you can have this time too. Take your board out.
Okay, well, it cuts in with the Discovery Trail. I don't know how many of you are aware of the fact that the Ulysses Bill Mountain Library now has free passes, one-day passes to both the Science Center downtown and the, oh, now I'm gonna really look. The archaeological, you know, the Paleontological Museum.
Yeah.
They are for, you
Museum
know,
of the
one
Earth.
day, Museum of the Earth. You pick them up, you go, you bring back the pass the next day. But particularly for you who have students, you know, home that aren't going anywhere over break, they were a godsend to some of our parents. They were practically in tears. They were so excited about being able to take their kids. It's a wonderful option, so please encourage parents to use that.
Okay. Other open forum comments? So we need to adjourn for a brief executive session, discussion of employment matters and relating to the promotion of a particular person. Motion? Second. There. Okay, so can you thank everybody for coming? We'll
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
ask you to, move hastily and then we can get on with work. Good to see you. What do you got?
Real quick.